Welcome to Cut the Crop, keeping you in the know about everything you grow. Researchers, growers and other interesting folk delivering insights and information on topics ranging from agronomy to profitability. Brought to you by the Foundation for Arable Research.
Well, hi everyone. Welcome to this episode of Cut the Crop. I'm Scott Champion, your host, and today my guest is FAR researcher Owen Gibson. Owen, good to see you again.
G'day, Scott.
Great to have you back on the podcast. Owen's going to be talking to us about a research project that's looking at post-harvest management of tall fescue seed crops. Owen, just to kick off, tell us a bit about the project and also why is FAR doing the work?
Yeah, well, this project all came about, it was in 2020, 2021, where we were getting reports from growers about struggling to make tall fescue yield, particularly in the second and third seasons. Mm-hmm. So they were having good yields in the first season, but the preceding seasons they couldn't get the head numbers there to make the crops yield well. Mm-hmm. So at that point, FAR undertook a project with CERC, and we employed a master's student to come in and look at this on farm and see what they could find out. And after that, we still had some unanswered questions, and we've kept the project running.
Yeah, and Owen's just mentioned CERC there. If you're not familiar with CERC, CERC's the Seed Industry Research Centre, and it brings together FAR and a number of commercial seed companies in joint investment for R&D and also for training new people, new researchers coming through the sector as well. Owen, tall fescue, my understanding, is a bit different to some of the other crops. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's the nature of it that it's grown, particularly in New Zealand, as a multi-year crop. So it's differing from our ryegrass seed crops, which are predominantly grown as just 1 year crops. So it adds this whole other aspect of trying to deal with the residue post-harvest. Mm-hmm. And, this residue has a value attached to it. So, it's quite different. Do we bale it? Do we sell it as feed? Yep. Do we put it back onto the paddock and retain nutrients that's within the residue? Mm-hmm. Or, do we, and the amount of cutting or topping or heights. So there's quite a lot of unanswered questions. And when you actually start looking at these multi-year crops like tall fescue or cocksfit is quite similar to tall fescue, there's, a lot of the farmers actually got different practices to manage the post-harvest residue. Not saying one is better than the other, but, FAR, we really wanted to look at what is actually the different ways of dealing with it and how is that affecting the crop, how is it affecting the head numbers, ultimately what's given us our yield. And so that's what we're trying to identify by running this project.
Fantastic. And in terms of research sites, where's the work that you're doing being undertaken?
So to start with, it was on farm in mid-Canterbury. But then when we wanted to increase this project for longer, we drilled in 2 crops, one at our Chertsey research site, which is in Chertsey, just down the road from Mackay, and also another trial that we had at our Corfi research site in Lincoln. So both of them were used slightly different to start with. Our trial that we had at Corfi, it was originally we're looking at herbicides in the crop, and then also post-harvest herbicides for chitted seed. And the Chertsey site, we're also running some irrigation work in there as well. Right. But we've shifted it back to focus on this post-harvest management.
And who's involved in the project work, Owen?
So it's FAR running trials at the minute, but then also last season we had 2 master's students. With one was funded directly by FAR and one was funded by CERC. Yep. So Lockie Adams was looking at sort of the phenology of tall fescue in a first year crop, a bit about closing dates, and also just really what is happening with the tillers before they go reproductive or when they're going reproductive, and how cutting times can affect that. Okay. And also Shears was running the trial at our Corfi Farm research block, and he was really following a story, but more in I think it was a third year crop that he was doing his work in, and trying to see, looking at different cutting heights between 0 centimetres cutting, and if you look at 0 centimetre cutting, quite a a plant that's got a big crown,
Yes.
it looks horrible. So 0 centimeters, 4 centimeters, and I think there might have been 8 centimeters as well. And he was looking at the tiller development after those cutting and looking at everything from tiller size before they go reproductive. Does tall fescue have a juvenile stage?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we know that, or we're pretty confident that it has on a first year crop.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it has to reach a certain stage before it can be going through the initiation of winter cues before it'll go reproductive.
Mm-hmm.
But do the existing tillers have that juvenile phase as well? So there'll be some really interesting information that's going to be probably hopefully coming out this year and next.
Yeah, and in terms of sort of results to date, have you got some insights from the work that's been undertaken already?
Yeah, so obviously we had the students in there last season, but the year before we were looking at cutting heights, mainly around between 4 centimetres and 8 centimetres, looking at cutting timings, residue management, so removing or leaving on the residue, inter-row spraying. So yeah, there was a lot going on in a trial like this, but yeah, some really interesting results coming out of it. So particularly we had a yield advantage of cutting 4 centimetres over 8 centimetres.
Okay.
And quite a profound, highly significant result. And also from the number of cutting timings. So from when we did our first cutting post-harvest to when we're closing a crop in June, we cut those treatments 3 times, and on average between 2 cultivars, because we're looking at 2 quite different Quantica, which is a continental type variety, which is a summer active variety, compared to Tamora, which is a Mediterranean type with winter activity. So they're quite different. But yeah, the 3 times cutting definitely had a significant yield advantage over 2 and 1.
And any sort of key, insights that you think are going to be important going forward from the work that you've done to date, noting that there's still work to come. But yeah, what's it sort of?
I think what it is showing us is that we've maybe been a bit too soft on these, particularly on the varieties we're working with. Mm-hmm. So actually hitting them really hard post-harvest, and you can you can leave residue on, or if you can take it off, was what the trial showed. But yeah, hitting that hard is allowing light really get down to that base to initiate either new tillers from the bud at the base of a sheaf, which, because we know that we need autumn tillers in tall fescue to vernalise before going reproductive in the spring. So yeah, allowing that light to get to the base is really paramount to increasing our seed yield. So I think that's probably the biggest take home that we've seen from the trial work we've done. And it does relate to talking to Adam. It looks like his results are showing the same, that hitting it harder is actually better. Work that we did in 2022-23 at Chertsey with post-harvest residue is showing the same as well. So it's actually interesting. It's really nice when we build that consistent pattern.
Absolutely. Yeah. You mentioned that there's a bit of work to go. What's the sort of forward timeline for this project? What's that look like?
So we're hoping we're going to run one more season.
Yeah.
And we've actually extended Adam's masters. So he's going to be doing some work on the fine detail, looking at head numbers, tiller diameters, when tillers go reproductive. And hopefully if we get this data set in the 26-27 year, that should finish off the post-harvest management part of our tall fescue work that we're doing.
And in terms of getting the information out there, what are the sort of ways FAR's going to be doing that once the work's completed?
So FAR, what we try to do is get our annual reports, and that's probably our main way of getting out information, or podcasts like this, obviously. But our main focus for the tall fescue is we'd like to do a FAR focus on tall fescue, like we've done on ryegrass in the past. We did Coxfit last year or the year before. So that's the ultimate goal, is to produce a full document on tall fescue management.
Great, Owen. Really interesting work, and great to be having some of those insights already, having them line up with other bits of work, and acknowledge that there's still a bit of work to go on this one. So look, I've been talking to FAR researcher Owen Gibson. Owen, great to have you here again, and we've been talking about a research project that's looking at the post-harvest management of tall fescue. So, if you'd like more information, please feel free to reach out to us here at FAR, and to all of our listeners, have a great day on the farm.
Thanks for tuning in to Cut the Crop, presented to you by FAR. If you'd like to know more about any of the topics discussed or have any suggestions for future topics, go to www.cutthecrop.co.nz.